Hello, everyone. My name is Miss D. My name is Miss Dieffenwierth, but your students probably call me Miss D if they can't say my last name. I'm a middle school science teacher here at Baldwin. This is my second year at Baldwin teaching. I'm also a traveling teacher, so if you have students learning online and I'm late for the class, I do have to transition between rooms, and so sometimes I'm a little slow at getting on online, but I try to get on as quickly as possible between classes. All right, so for today's meeting, we're going to talk about my contact information, the brief course introduction, class rules, submitting assignments, makeup and late work, office hours and tutoring, and grading policy, which is following the county guidelines. So for my contact information, I check my email usually during my planning period every day, and my planning period isn't until 7th. And so about 7th period, that's when I can look at my email for usually for the first time in the day, because during the rest of the day I'm teaching. So this is my email. This is a good way to contact me. You can also contact me through a Google Voice number. Calling the school phone for me is kind of weird because I don't have a classroom, and so it's going to reach me more quickly if you use my Google Voice number. All right, so course introduction. So for my 7th graders, all right, this is a breakdown that's also in the syllabus. So for quarter 1, we've already covered nature of science, and now we're working on energy and energy transformation, starting with waves, because waves are energy. So we're starting with talking about waves. Already completed nature of science. Quarter 2, we're going to talk about earth structures, and then quarter 3, heredity, reproduction, evolution, and interdependence of organisms. Quarter 4, evolution and interdependence of organisms continued, as well as review and the bridge for 8th grade. 8th graders, you guys are starting, we've already done nature of science as well, so we've covered that for our 8th graders. Right now we're talking about the properties of matter. Then we're going to talk about changes in matter. Quarter 2, we're going to talk about matter and energy transformations, Earth in space and time, and we're going to continue Earth in space and time to the 3rd quarter, possibly even the 4th quarter, depending on how quickly we can get through it. But our 4th quarter should be mostly devoted to reviewing for the state exams. So we're going to be reviewing 6th and 7th grade standards towards the end of the year for 8th grade. If we have time at the end of the year, then we're going to also do some lessons bridging to environmental science and biology. All right, so for our classes, both for 7th and 8th grade, our books are McGraw-Hill, that's the publisher. So if you go into Blended Learning, if you have a district laptop, you can go into Blended Learning through the icon that's on the screen when you come into when you open up your computer. You can also go in through the DCPS website and select Blended Learning. Your student can put in their student login, and they should then have access to a digital copy of their book. If your student is in person, then they will also have access to a physical copy that's in the classroom. We'll tear out the pages that they're working on, staple them. They can bring them home and work on them. They can also, in my class, I also am giving permission for them to bring their books home if they feel like they're responsible enough to keep track of them. But if they lose their books, then they're responsible for their missing pages. So if that means they have to go online and digitally access them, then that's the consequence for not being able to keep up with their books. But they only get one book, but in-person students do get a physical copy. Online students will only have access to the online copy. So, and the book again can be accessed through Blended Learning. So through Blended Learning. Class rules. So I expect students to be on time and prepared. I know for online it can be a little more confusing with the on time, especially when I'm late. So because I have to transition between classes, and sometimes I have computer trouble. So I apologize to online students for that. I'm doing my best. So be on time and be prepared. Be prepared means have class materials. The list of class materials are in the class syllabus that every student should have notified their parents about or guardians to then return to me signed. I know some students have not returned to signed syllabus. Let's see, following instructions the first time they are given. So that requires your student to be an active listener and focused in the classroom so that they can follow instructions the first time. Also, when they're given a correction or redirection, they need to comply. Keep your hands and feet to yourself. So for students, especially with COVID, it's really important for them to not to touch each other. That also prevents roughhousing and possible fighting. So just keep all students should be keeping their hands and feet to themselves. They should be using appropriate language in the classroom. The classroom simulates a professional environment, so it's expected that they use school-appropriate language. If they have other types of language they're allowed to use at home, that's none of our business here, but when they're at school, in the school building, in the classroom, they are expected to use school-appropriate language. Speak positively about themselves and others. So this can be an issue sometimes when students put each other down, even just playfully. So in our class, because I can really hurt sometimes that'll really hurt someone and they're not comfortable speaking up about how that hurt them. So it's important for students to use positive language when they speak about themselves and also when they speak about other people, to create a safe space, a safe learning environment for everyone, where everyone feels comfortable sharing and participating. All right, so turn off or silence cell phones and put them away before class. Unless students have been given permission to use their cell phones for an activity, which might happen if we're doing a Kahoot in class because we don't have school computers right now. There's not computer access for all the students in the classroom. I might allow for them to use their phones to access certain technology for activities. So there are times where I might give permission for the use of cell phones, but if I have not given permission for the use of cell phones, then the students are expected to keep their cell phones put away. Keeping their space in the classroom clean. This is just basic and a basic act of respect and consideration for others is to keep space in classroom clean, especially for me as a traveling teacher. These are not just my classrooms, but also there's a teacher. I travel to other teachers' classrooms throughout the day, and it's really important for students to keep their spaces in classroom clean for the betterment of everyone and to be respectful to our custodial staff. All right, stay in the room until given permission to leave. So students are not allowed to leave a lecture or a lesson early unless given permission to, and if they are on campus, then that means they need to have a hall pass and have somewhere specific where they are heading, but they should not leave without permission. All right, and also to create a safer learning environment, we of course are requiring masks to be worn consistently on campus. I have noticed that this has been an issue for certain students. As warnings, I've been given a lot of warnings, and for the most part, most students have been compliant. If a student is not compliant, then they will be written up. They will be receiving a referral. I'll write them up on a referral. It'll go to the discipline office and they'll handle it from there. From what I'm aware, if they have 4 strikes for mask, refusing to wear their mask, then they will have to go full-time online. They're also expected to respect social distancing whenever possible, and that ties into the keep your hands and feet to yourself rule that we already have in place. Assignments. So online assignments should be submitted to Focus unless otherwise stated. So for the most part for this class, it is expected that assignments are uploaded to Focus. This is good for everyone because it allows for me to see and also for you to see and your students to see when assignments are posted and to have a consistent place of where to put those assignments. And it'll be time stamped and it'll be very clear when it was, posted, when it was turned in, whether or not it was turned in. It's just clear for everyone involved. And it gives us one consistent place. I know last year, for any students that had me last year, I gave them the option between turning in on Teams and on Focus. But this year, we're turning in on Focus unless we're doing a quiz and forms. If we're doing a quiz or activity in forms, then they will have to use Teams, but I will let them know during that lesson. So I will let them know if they're turning something in on Teams, but generally, Focus. And all of the assignments should be listed on Focus, even if that quiz that might be in Teams, it should be listed in the description on Focus that you can find that quiz in Teams. So if a student is ever confused or behind, they should check Focus to make sure that they're updated on their assignments. I'll talk more about that in a moment. In person, assignments can be handed in or submitted on Focus. So a student that is attending class in person, they can hand me a physical assignment or they can submit on Focus. If they've completed a physical assignment, but let's say they forgot to turn it in and they want to turn it in after school, they can take a picture of it on their phone and they can upload it to Focus. Students can get both Focus and Teams as apps on their phones, which makes it easier. So if they take a picture of an assignment, they can just easily upload it into their Focus account. In place of the, like instead of a Word document, just upload the picture. So if a student wants to submit a handwritten assignment online, they can take a picture and upload the picture to Focus. So that's what I just stated. Continue on to the next one. All right, so materials for assignments are in the class materials folder in the files tab on Teams. Now, if your student has been consistently attending class, then I have, especially when we're on Teams, I have shared my screen and I've showed your students where the class materials folder is. If they missed every time that I've showed that, then they need to let me know if they're still having a hard time finding it. But when you go into Teams, in your general channel, which should be the first channel listed, you go over in your tabs and they have a tab for attendance. Whenever they come into class online, they should go into attendance. With our in-person students, I know they're phasing out of the online model, but if we ever go back to that online model, I'll expect them to go back into the form every day for their attendance. But there's also a tab for files. And if you click on the Files tab, there should be a class materials folder. And in that class materials folder, there should be materials from all of our lessons. And so if a student is missing materials, that's one place where they can find those resources. If they aren't good with using Teams, maybe Teams is kind of glitchy on the computer, having trouble, Focus, all the assignments should also have, all the assignment materials for each assignment should be attached in Focus. So if they go into Focus, they select an assignment, they should be able to view the class materials for that assignment and download them to their computer. I've showed students multiple times how to download from Teams, if the assignments that are posted in Teams to their computers, but they also have that option to download from Focus. Alrighty. Now for online, quizzes and tests will be given in Teams through forms and in the which is in the assignments tab. So in Teams, we have our files tab, we have our assignments tab, I think there's a notebook tab, and there's the attendance tab. So in the general channel. And so in the assignments tab, that's where quizzes and tests will be posted in forms. Students will always be told that that's where they should go, and that's they will be directed there. I've also shared my screen. Last time we did one quiz in forms at the time of me making this video so far, and when I assigned it during that day's lesson, I introduced and I showed I shared my screen and showed the students where to access the quiz. Forms quizzes are also compatible with phones, so if a student is tuning in on their phone to the Teams meeting, they can easily access the quiz on their phone. For in-person students, we're going to try to give in-person quizzes and tests whenever possible, but there might be times where we still use forms. So again, the same thing, assignments tab in Teams. Common assessments. So common assessments will be given in person. Common assessments are pretty much quizzes, but the data goes into, is showing your students' progress with the standards, and the data is going into the system so that it can be viewed by the administrators and everything else. It's good for tracking your students' progress. So the common assessments will be given in person whenever possible. So for our in-person students, but for students who are fully online, I'm going to be having the common assessments opened in Performance Matters. And whenever we're having a common assessment day, I will direct your student to Performance Matters, assuming that they're in class on time for that direction. Now, Performance Matters can be accessed also through blended learning. So if they have a district computer, they can access it through the blended learning icon on their screen and then go in and select Performance Matters. If not, they can access it through the district website. Makeup work. So students have access to PowerPoints and copies of assignments in Teams, which I've already mentioned, the class materials folder in the Files tab, and in Focus attached to each assignment. This means if your student has missed class time, these are the places they go to get their missing resources. In-person students will be given 1 copy of physical assignments. So students that are attending class in person will be given 1 copy of physical assignments. If they lose that copy, then they can print a replacement off of Focus or Teams. So if they're losing their work that's handed to them, then they'll have to print a copy off of online, or they can, if it's possible, depending on the document, they can just complete it online and submit it to Focus straight, from the computer. Because some assignments can be edited in Focus. So if it's makeup work, then they can just go into Focus, download it, fill out the form, or fill out the page, and then upload it back to Focus. For online lessons, the dated daily lesson plan is posted in the general channel of the team. So in the general channel of our science class team, there's going to be an announcement post for each class day that's online, and there will be the lesson plan for that online class. Now, that lesson plan, usually there's a reminder at the beginning to do their attendance form. At the time for our lesson meeting, because sometimes we do a little video, I ask the students to watch a video before we start our live lesson. And I usually attach any class materials for the day to that lesson plan post. So that's another way for students to find what they missed, is they just go back, because each one's titled with the date. So the date of the class. So they just go back, they look at the banner for the right date, and then they should see what the lesson plan was and the materials. Now, now in our lesson meetings channel, so you go from the general channel to the lesson meetings channel, which is on the left, go to that lesson meetings channel. That's where recorded lessons are located, and they are dated. So they're reposted and dated, and the students should be able to rewatch the lessons that they missed for online. For in-person, I do not have recorded lessons. I only have recorded lessons for online days. But they can still access the materials through Teams and Focus, as I've already stated. Maybe in the future, I'll try to record some independent lessons for my in-person kids and have those in Teams as well. But for right now, I'm just, if they miss, they miss. They just need to make sure they make up the assignments and work. All right, so again, late work should be submitted to Focus. Even for in-person students, I prefer for your late work to be turned into Focus. Late work is accepted after the due date. Then I'm going to then at that point, unless I get a little behind with my grading, at that point, I can put a 0 in to let you know that, hey, this is late. And that 0 is going to sit there and it's going to stay there until, oh, I keep feeling like I'm talking to the students. All right, so for the students, that 0 is going to stay there until they turn in the assignment. And then I might not get to grading it right away, because by the time, if they turn it in late, then I might be already grading the more recently turned in assignments for the most recent due date. And so it might take me a while to go back and get to that. So if it's turned in late, it might get graded really late. But it will get graded. So depending on the circumstances, so for especially students with IEP plans, I might put in an ET instead of a 0 for extended time as kind of a marker to show that that needs to be turned in, but also show that, but not have the 0 in there to drop the grade and not cause that student any anxiety about that. Because if they do get extended time, then you might see an ET pop into there. I also will leave notes on the assignments in Focus. So especially for students with IEP plans. You might see that there is a note by the assignment if it's late and if there's an extra time marking telling when the new due date is for the extended time. Or information about maybe if the assignment needs to be redone, if it wasn't done fully the first time, and so, or if something needs to be recycled, there should be notes. If an assignment is turned in late, yeah, it'll likely be graded late. Students are responsible for keeping up with due dates. So students, that's something that, especially in middle school, we really need to work on with the students, is getting them organized. That's a big part of with like our core subjects and AVID, is making sure that students are organized and have those organizational skills to be able to structure themselves to make them ready for high school. All right, so that's one of the things with our structured note taking, like we're doing Cornell notes in my class. And with expecting the students to keep themselves organized, keep track of their own work, and then turn their work in on time. Those are all really important life skills that students need to work on developing. So they are expected to keep up with due dates. If too much late work piles up, that can be really stressful to the students, and that can be really like for whatever student is behind, they might start feeling really stressed out. It could cause anxiety. So they need to try to keep up with work the best they can. All right, maybe keep a planner. I recommend, possibly keeping a planner to where they can write down what assignments, they're missing, assignment due dates, so that way that they can really keep track of what they need to do and prioritizing their work. So that way they can maybe relieve some of the pressure and stress, because I know that I've had students in the past who would wait until the very last possible moment to turn in all of their work from the 9 weeks. And then that's just stressful for everyone involved. That's stressful for the student that's overwhelmed with a pile of work. That's stressful for me trying to rush to grade what I can before the grades close. So we need to make sure that students are keeping up with their work and are being responsible and are taking care of organizing, staying organized. Planners are great help. Also, I know that it's required for the core subjects for the students to have a binder with tabs for each subject, so they can put, science work in one of those sections of the binder. Your students are also expected to have a class notebook. Most of them do, because I've checked them. But for online students, they can keep those notes in a Word document instead of a physical notebook. I do recommend a physical notebook because it does help with the students in developing their handwriting skills. But if it's easier for them to do the online notes, that is also acceptable. So just for everyone involved, let's try to keep track of due dates. Let's, the students need to be responsible and get their work in to me on time. Also, if they keep a planner, it's easy for parents and guardians to then check their planner to see what's going on, have them check off when they've completed an assignment. So besides just focus, you have another place where you can see what's going on with your student, what they have due, another organizational tool for people monitoring their students as well. All right, so office hours and tutoring. I have office hours from 1:10 to 2:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. If a student needs additional help, they should reach out about a help class meeting. The meeting can be online through Teams or in person after school on Thursdays. So I'm willing to stay after school on Thursdays to help any students that have fallen behind or that need extra help. If a student stays after school, then I need confirmation from a parent or guardian that first off, that they are going to stay after school, so I need to know in advance. Otherwise, I might just leave not realizing this. So you need to make sure that I'm aware in advance that your student's going to be in my class for help class. They must confirm with me that they've arranged transportation, or you must confirm with me that there's been transportation arranged. I can stay till 3:30 p.m. after school. Make sure that your student has something arranged for them to be picked up or with a guardian or in a safe place around 3:30, because I will not be, I'll be leaving at 3:30. Also, if students need help on an assignment, I want to see if they're showing up to help class, I need to see evidence that they attempted the assignment before they come to me. So I need to see signs that they've tried to work some stuff out and they're still struggling, and then I can help them try to guide them through and find where the problem is so that I can help them. It helps to see work so I know where to start with. Where to start. All right, so grading policy, I'm doing points. So each assignment's worth a certain amount of points, and those points are averaged. Some assignments are graded for accuracy, like quizzes and tests, while others are graded for completion, like notes. So for some assignments, I'm looking for how many things are answered correctly or completed correctly, and other assignments are more for completion. Quizzes and tests are weighted more heavily. They're going to be worth a lot more points. Usually quizzes can be worth 40 to 50 points, and tests can be worth 80 to 100 points, depending on the number of questions. Other assignments are typically worth 10 to 15 points. Workbook packets are worth 20 points. So workbook packets we're doing from the book. I need to see evidence that the student has read and answered the questions throughout the packet. It's important. The grading policy, as you see on the left, is the same as for the county. 90 to 100% is an A, 80 to 89 is a B, 70 to 79 is a C, and 60 to 69 D, F, 59 and below. All right, if anyone has any questions, feel free to contact me. I hope you have a great night.